Well, hello, DCO Nation. Welcome to Deadcom Outdoors Radio. This is the show where the tide set the tone and the bite tells the story. We're diving into everything saltwater inshore kayak fishing, from lures and locations to weather, water, and winning tactics. If it helps you hook up on more fish, we're talking about it right here. So grab your paddle, check your drag, and here we go. Well, welcome DCO Nation to Deadcom Outdoors right here on the Outdoor Radio Network. And before we jump into the conversation with the guest that I have on today, I would love to connect with you guys. So jump over to my social media accounts, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, search Deadcom Outdoors. We can get connected. Tag me in your photos so I can see what you guys are doing and we can start a conversation. So jump over there and let's get connected. So I am going to keep this intro really short because I want as much time as I can to speak with Captain Matt Parrish. Matt, I really appreciate you jumping on. How are you?
Chris, man, the pleasure is all mine. I'm doing well. It's still very hot here in Houston, Texas, but the guide calendar is full and fall is upon us, and the redfish are biting, and so we're getting after it. I've given up hope on a cold front, and we're just gonna push through the heat.
Yeah, we're getting our first real cold front this weekend. So, yeah, man, I feel you. That heat is finally, I think, cross the fingers, the heat is finally behind us. So
When it
that's
gets done
awesome.
with you guys, if y'all could send it down our way, that would be
Yeah,
great. We'd love that.
absolutely. I will do that. Hey, man, plenty to go around. Plenty to go around. Uh, so Matt, you already said that you're from Houston, but tell everybody where you guide out of and kind of what your specialty is.
Yeah, so I guide out of the Galveston Bay complex, and so if you're not from the area, if you look on the map down around the armpit of Texas, you're going to see the Galveston Bay complex, and it's huge. We have an East Bay, we have a central area of the bay that includes Trinity Bay, and that's where our jetties are. And then that stretches all the way down through West Bay and on towards a little town called Freeport. So it's a really large complex. I guide primarily in the West Bay part of that system. And my specialty is ultra shallow water sight casting for redfish, whether it's on a fly rod or conventional tackle. We really don't target trout or flounder. We do catch those on occasion, but we are all about redfish all the time. And
Yeah.
being in the Galveston complex, it can be tough because we don't have near the pretty clean water that a lot of places do that focus on redfish. Our water in 90% of our marsh in Galveston is chocolate milk. So it can be tough, but we figure out a way to get it done.
Yeah, yeah. Now to back up just one little bit, I learned about Matt from his podcast, Empty Stringers podcast on Spotify. Now I think you're on all the podcast platforms. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, Apple to Spotify to just about anywhere you get a podcast, you should find the Empty Stringers podcast out there.
Yeah, and I got to tell you guys, it is absolutely fantastic. If you want to learn about redfish, Matt I have learned so much. I've had him on my DCO live on my YouTube channel where he broke down bird activity and it was just absolutely phenomenal. And I still get comments over that too, and I was like, man, I don't know. You need to ask Matt. I don't know these birds. I'm still learning. But okay. So check out Empty Stringers on Spotify. We're going to hit all of his social media here a little bit later on. But again, let's jump into this fall redfish time. Fall is, well, for you, right around the corner. So what changes are you starting to see right now before that cold front comes through?
So it's actually really interesting because of the way that it changes for us in on the Texas coast from year to year. So I like to keep pretty good notes, and I like to look back on past pictures. And so this time last year, we were fishing with jackets and hoodies, and the water was nice and clear and kind of low, and we were sight casting redfish all day long. We've yet to have a cold front, which what the cold front really does for us is it clears the water up. We need the water temperature to get down into the 60s and stay there. Once it does that, all of the algae blooms will die off. All of the sediment in the water will settle at the bottom, and the water becomes really crystal clear in a lot of areas. And but we haven't had that, and so what we have had is a big high tide that's pushed a ton of shrimp that has hatched in the marsh. So we do have lots of shrimp in the marsh, and we do have schooling redfish, but it becomes a more of a challenge to see those fish because of the water clarity and because of the high tide. So a lot of times, if I've got a lower tide and I'm fishing in 8 inches of water, even if it's muddy water, when that fish spooks or he moves, I'm going to see his wake. So
Mm-hmm.
we catch a ton of fish off of the wake. We cast out in front of the wake, we catch that fish. When the water is 2 feet high, you're not going to see a wake. And in fact, you're not going to see 15 or 20 redfish moving down a shoreline unless they're really causing a ruckus. So we've had to really key in on, the surface water activity. We're looking for tails. We're looking for shrimp jumping out of the water, and they are right up against the shoreline. I mean, I had clients out a couple of weeks ago, and I grabbed they were fishing with a bait caster and paddle tails. And I grabbed my bait caster and I said, "Watch this." And I threw my bait out and I landed a foot from the bank. And I said, "Did you see where my bait landed?" And they shook their head yes. And I said, "That's too far away from the shore. You have to bury that lure in the grass." I said, "If you can't put it next to the grass, throw it up into the grass and drag it out and let it fall in the water, because that's how tight to the shore you have to get to catch some of these fish, because they're nosing up into the grass and then they're backing out and they're looking and then they're nosing back up into the grass. And so if your lure lands a foot or two from the edge, 9 times out of 10, that fish isn't going to see it. And so that's what we're dealing with right now. And a lot of the fish that were schooling in the middle of these back lakes and further away from the shore, it's all about white shrimp in the Spartina grass right now. The brown shrimp have all moved out, and white shrimp are ruling the day, and the fish are really fired up over them. It's just tougher to see them because of the high tide. We've had, your astronomical high tides around this time of year, coupled with, a full moon that was just here a week or two ago,
Yep.
and the tide is just so high I can barely fit my skiff underneath the little bridge I go under when I launch.
Yeah, yeah, we've had those same high tides. Matter of fact, our tides fluctuate a lot higher than what you guys get. On that full moon high tide, we had streets along the ocean front that were flooding.
Yeah.
There were all kinds of areas that were flooded out from those high tides, and then you get all the debris that floats back in, all the dead reeds and spartina grass and everything floating everywhere, and it's a mess. But you need those high tides to start flushing things out, because with that high tide becomes an extreme low tide, at least on our end. We get that negative tide then, and I don't want to call it a dump, because we get so many negative low tides that it's almost like we're dumping all the time. But I hear you guys in Texas talk about, waiting for the dump, to change over, almost like the season, I guess, in big air quotes.
I think the cool thing about your area with your 5 and 6 foot tide swings sometimes is like you're basically getting a dump every day.
Mm-hmm.
And really all that means for us in the Texas on the Texas coast is that all of the bait, all of the redfish that are up in that 1 to 2 foot water column, when we get a cold front and a northwest wind, that northwest wind will accelerate the tide, and it will leave an area that was 2 feet deep, completely dry. And so all of those fish, all that bait has to come out. We end up, it spurs a huge feeding pattern. We end up catching a ton of fish on those days. You guys kind of have that happen every day because your areas that get that 1 to 2 feet of water on them at the high tide, I don't know how long that lasts for you guys, but it seems to me like it would create this moment where, everything's leaving a flat all at once just about every day, right? Is that right, or am I kind of off base there?
Yes, yeah. We have 2 highs and 2 lows in a 24-hour cycle. So
So
I
you're
mean,
semi-diurnal. Are you getting
yeah,
a 5 and 6 foot swing
yes.
both?
Yeah.
Oh
So
my
so
goodness.
matter of fact, so this weekend it's not as extreme. We're only getting about maybe a 4.5 foot swing during both.
Okay.
So it's not quite as extreme. Now on the full moon, we were at that 6 foot, turnover. So yeah, man, we were flushing. When I go out and it talks low tide and a negative tide, our flats are basically dry.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, every oyster bed is exposed. All those fish move off of those flats into those, feeder creeks. They're gone. So yeah,
Wow. So just to put that into perspective and the difference in the Galveston Bay complex, our Galveston West Bay, where I spend 99% of my time guiding, it's about 5 to 6 feet deep in the middle of the bay. So if we had a 6 foot swing, our entire bay would go dry.
yeah.
That blows my mind.
Yeah, yeah. What I need to do, this may be off on a little bit of a tangent, but what I need to do is take some pictures and shoot them over to you at low tide and show you, the water levels and what it looks like in both. So the flat that I love to fish at high tide, there may be 3 to 4 feet of water on top of that flat.
Okay.
Oyster beds everywhere, grass everywhere, and then it's about 3 feet. So then when we get a 4 foot tide swing, that flat's dry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't need to send me pictures because I've already told the wife I'm hooking the skiff to the truck and I'm coming down there, up there, I guess for me. I'm coming up there and we're going to go fishing on the skiff together.
Yeah, man. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. But Matt, we're coming up to the end of the first segment. Guys, don't go anywhere. We're talking fall redfish patterns with Captain Matt Parrish. You're listening to Dead Come Outdoors right here on the Outdoor Radio Network. Well, welcome back, DCO Nation, to Dead Come Outdoors. We're chatting with Captain Matt Parrish, and we've been talking about really tide swings and during that first segment and how that's really affecting this change that's going to happen in the fall with these redfish. So now I want to kind of dive into these fall tactics and what we really should be doing to target these redfish to start, picking up really my PB, because my PB, I want a 35 plus. So you're the man. Tell me how I do that.
All right. So the deal right now is you have two choices typically in the fall. If you're going for that big fish, you're gonna want to target areas that are closer to more open, deeper water. So an example for the way I would do that here in the Galveston Bay complex is, let's say Trinity Bay. Trinity Bay is a very large, open. It's probably, I'm going to take a wild guess and say it's 7 miles wide and probably 8, 9 feet deep in the middle. But it has about 100 yards of a shallow sand flat all the way around it. And so I'm going to find a high tide that is getting ready to fall off. I'm going to hop up on that sand flat and I'm going to pole the edges of it because the big fish, once a redfish gets really above that 28, 29, 30 inch range, they're not as interested in the shrimp hatch as they were when they were smaller. So your big 30 plus fish are going to be feeding on mullet because you've got finger mullet that are going to start hatching out in these colder months. And so they're going to move closer to deeper water and hold the structure. So even better if you've got a shipwreck near a shallow flat, if you've got a ton of deep water oyster beds that are near a shallow flat, and you want to sight cast that big fish, uh, crawl up on that shallow flat during a high tide when it's falling, because the fish like to come up there on that falling tide and catch bait as it's flushing off of that flat. That would be the way that I would target a big, PB in that 35, 36, 37-inch range. If you're not out for your personal best, you're not going to go catch one of those big monsters, and you're more looking for numbers. All of the marshes right now have white shrimp hatches. Like I mentioned in the first segment, they're in the grass. They're going to school up. So you're going to have schools of, here in the Galveston Bay complex, we have schools of anywhere from 5 to 6 fish to 50 fish. Sometimes even more than that, depending on the area. And so those particular schools are very territorial. I've been on this one particular school has been going off on the same shoreline at the same time of day. Well, I take that back. Not the same time of day, but the same time during the tide cycle. So the tide changes, its highs and lows change a little bit every day. I can base that school's activity off of the tide. It's going to happen about 45 minutes to an hour after the outgoing tide starts every day, like clockwork. I can catch a fish off of that school. I can wait till it goes by, and I'll just sit and wait for it to come back down that shoreline, and I'll catch another fish off of it. It's that kind of activity if you want numbers in the marsh, and you're going to catch fish all the way from your rat reds in the 16, 17-inch range up until, I think the biggest I've caught doing that is around a 30, 31. And then that's kind of where you top out. Those bigger fish are moving out of the nursery. They're going to the bigger water, and they're going to focus on uh, different types of bait. If you want to catch a heavier fish, if you're going for tournament redfish, you want to catch a heavier fish, you're going to want to look at freshwater inlets into these marshes, because they're going to have a shad hatch. If they haven't already hatched shad, you're going to find shad hatches in your what I call sweetwater, brackish water inlets into your marshes, little creeks, things like that. They're going to be full of shad. Shad build heavier redfish than shrimp. You're just going to catch a heavier redfish when they've been feeding on shad. So if you're in a tournament and you're looking for that one or two big bite, you got to go target those freshwater creeks all around the mouth and into the back lakes they're spilling into. That's where you're going to find your tournament fish.
Yeah, yeah. So let's stick with running this skinny water and getting back into these creeks, because I love that type of fishing. I did it, probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago now. When mind is really starting to, play tricks on the old calendar. So, yeah, just pushing back into these very shallow areas where I'm having to pull my pedal drive on my kayak, which is pretty much a foot and under, that 12 inches and under is where I love to target, and seeing these fish. And I got to tell you, that day, my casting ability was off, because I saw these two reds. They were moving kind of almost like in a train. One is in front of the other one. And I saw him. I was like, okay, I'm going to leave this fish. I'm going to throw it out there. And I ended up conking this thing on the head, and he was gone. Now, he didn't spook the second one, but, I was using a Prawn Star shrimp, and I just kind of threw out maybe about 5 or so feet out in front of him. And he just kept swimming, but he was not interested at all. So he never really spooked and shot off anyway. Is there any way to get him back, or maybe get him to feed? Do you have a trick that you can share with us?
Yeah, so I've seen this hundreds of times. So your lead fish, whether it's a school of 100 fish or whether it's 2 fish, your lead fish is the boss. He's the one that is the fish number 2 is feeding off of you know, his spidey sense. So if you spook that first fish, if it's a school, you're going to blow the whole school, and they're going to take 30 minutes or so to get back together. If you spook that lead fish, that second fish, he's not eating.
He's not
There's
even.
not anything you can do to make that fish eat. The only thing you can do is sit down and watch that fish and wait for his sense of danger to go away. And the way you'll notice that is they'll do a tail kick. They'll glide 15, 20 feet. If they sit down and they kind of hang out there, you give that fish a couple of minutes and he'll eat. But if he tail kicks twice and he's 100 feet from you, that fish is going to take a little bit longer to get him to eat. Your best bet in that scenario is try to throw to the second fish all the time, because those fish are going to compete for that bait. If you throw it in front of fish number 2, fish number 1 is going to turn around and try to eat it also. If you throw in front of fish number 1 and you spook him, you've lost both those fish. And it's the same thing for schools. If you have a school running down a shoreline, and the easiest thing to do is to cast at the lead fish, right? Because that's head of the spear. It's the easiest cast to make. If you can get better at dialing that cast back 6 to 8 inches and moving it, to the left or the right, and trying to pick a fish off the outside edge of the school, you can peel that fish off of the school, and that school will keep right on going. And when they get to the end of the shoreline, they'll turn around and come back. And so you can't spook the lead fish. That's I guess my number one advice. If you spook that lead fish, you're toast. But if you can get that second fish interested, the lead fish is the alpha of the group, and he's going to eat first. He's going to eat what he wants to eat. If they're running parallel to each other and you run it across them, you're going to get bit. They're going to fight for it. And so you just gotta. Everyone's a great caster until you get a redfish in front of them, right?
You betcha. Yeah,
That's how it
and
goes.
I even
Myself
thought to
included.
myself, that's that buck fever, because I knew where I wanted to put it. I was even looking where I wanted to put it. Aim where you want to, hit it, and I was aiming there, and I was just like, well, that's it. I was gone. Smacking right in the head with it.
Everyone thinks that because I'm a guide, that all of us guides are perfect casters and we never make a mistake. And if you get me on the front of a skiff with a fly rod or a bait caster, there's plenty of times that I see, now that I'm more experienced than I was years ago, it's usually like when I see the fish, like when I see it's that fish you're talking about, like he's a over 30, he's a big boy. I get the buck fever. I could very easily blow that shot. And if we went about this like robots, it wouldn't be any fun, right? Like,
Right.
we wouldn't even want to do it. I mean, the buck fever is part of the fun of it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've got a couple of minutes here. I want to get into what you're going to be throwing. So give me some lures, either top water, soft plastics, even your flies. What are you going to be throwing here this next probably October through December, really?
Yeah, so I'm big. If you're gonna fish conventional tackle, I'm big on the paddle tails. I like a 3/16 ounce jig head with a screw lock on the top, so that you can just kind of screw it up there. I go with a short paddle tail. Kaden Lures makes a 365 shad. It's a 3 1/4 inch long paddle tail. It's got great tail movement. I love that bait. There's a lot of them out there in that size category. I'm going to throw something that has got some flash to it. So whether you've got clean or dirty water, I'm throwing a dark colored bait with some gold flash. Cleaner water, I'm going to throw a light colored bait with some silver flash to it. I follow that pattern for the most part with my flies, but with flies, it depends on how deep you're fishing. So if you're a foot or more, I'm going to throw a medium to a large size dumbbell eye on my fly, and I'm going to tie a larger pattern. If I'm fishing really shallow, like below a foot, skinnier than a foot, I'm going to go light. I want that fly to land light on the water and not spook the fish. So I'm going with a small eye, maybe a number 2 size hook, and I'm going to tie a lot less material into that fly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I tell you what, guys, go check out Captain Matt and Empty Stringers. But, tell everybody where they can connect with you, your social media, your podcast, all that kind of stuff. Let everybody know where they can find you and how they can book you for a trip. So, all the Texas guys that are listening to the show right now, tell them how they can book you up.
Absolutely. You can find me as far as booking purposes at captmattparrish.com. That's MATTPARRISH. I've got the calendar link there. You can book a trip. You can follow me on Instagram at empty_stringers. You can follow me on TikTok at emptystringers. And I don't have a Facebook associated with the podcast, but the Empty Stringers podcast is on all platforms. You can shoot me an email if you have a question. I'll cover it on the podcast. That is emptystringers@gmail.com.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I can't speak highly enough about the podcast. I absolutely love it. I catch it every week. It drops on Thursdays. And, I am there like clockwork. And so, man, I really appreciate all your knowledge and for coming on and sharing some of that knowledge. I'm definitely going to have you on again, because again, with it being a 30-minute show, we're just scratching the surface of what we need to talk about. So I'm definitely going to have you on. Thanks again for coming on.
Man, Chris, thanks for having me. I love what you're doing. I love the DCO Nation. And so you guys keep up the good work, and looking forward to being back.
Thank you. Thank you. And remember, guys, we will end it like we always do. Conservation starts with you. Release a fish for someone else to enjoy. And you've been listening to Dead Calm Outdoors right here on the Outdoor Radio Network.